asked for rain again. He's done it before, he can do it again. Tommy Tenney. I believe that some cities are old wells of God's anointing, places of historic revival. God is calling pastors and congregations in those cities to redig those wells. Uh, Unfortunately, digging the debris out of an old well is not a pleasant task. Second, I feel like I have a visitor. Maybe it's just debris. Anyway, when a pastor friend of mine bought some property in India, he was told that there was an old well on the property. It wasn't a common vertical well, it was a slanted horizontally into the side of a mountain. As the ministry workers began to dig out the debris, they found old machinery, discarded furniture, and mounds of old trash among high stands of overgrown weeds and rushes. They found something else too. They encountered hundreds of cobras in that abandoned well, and they had to be removed. My friend told me we got that old well all cleaned out and went to bed. When we got up in the morning, we hoped and expected to find a pool of stagnant water waiting for us. But we discovered that the water in the well had begun to bubble up and was flowing so strongly again that it had created a stream overnight. The next wave will come of God's uncaps, the artesian wells of His glory. Wow. Many of the wells in the deserts in the Middle East were standing pool wells. There's enough water seeping up into a natural holding tank in the earth to keep it filled most of the time, even in the desert heat. Almost every living thing in the desert ecosystem makes its way to the oasis or standing pool of well for the water of life. God has uncapped abundant standing pools of His presence that have brought life to millions of thirsty believers and unsaved people over the last few decades. But they must travel to the well. There is forgotten power in pilgrimage. Now, He is about to release the next stage or wave of His anointing, and it will be unlike the old standing pool wells, in that these new wells will be artesian wells that will explode with great force. According to Webster, it's his ninth New Collegiate Dictionary. The artesian well is a well made by boring into the earth until water is reached, which from internal pressure flows up like a fountain, a deep bored well. The new wave or level of God's glory will come solely from the deep bored people of God's presence. It will explode into the world with such force that his life-giving presence will push beyond every barrier and obstacle to flow into the thirsty streets of the city and nations. This is how His glory will cover the whole earth, Isaiah 6:3 and Habakkuk 2:14. Fountains of the deep will break open. And I'm going to stop there because, something happened last year. I had an interesting personal testimony. I went down to our BLN Midwest group, Bethel Leadership Network Midwest group. It used to be called Upper Global Midwest, down in Rochester. And Steve Backlund was there. We had a great time together. And I was driving back from it alone, and I'm playing Scrooge and No Better Friend Than Scrooge. It's a play, obviously derived from the Christmas Carol, but its setting is when Tiny Tim has grown up, and he's telling the story of Scrooge's transformation. Anyway, it's taken up a lot of my fall, and so I planned 2 weekends to get away, and one of them was over deer hunting opener. And I don't think I've rifle hunted. Well, I haven't shot a deer with a rifle, and I think it's 12 years. Once I went to bow hunting, I don't know. And then the state of Minnesota went to one deer only. I was like, I don't want to not bow hunt. So I'm not going to shoot anything with a rifle unless, it's going on the wall. But all that being said, I had set aside the weekend for opener deer hunting for the first time in a while. And I'm driving home from Bethel, and I felt like God said to me, or from Rochester, sorry. And God said to me, so what do you want to go hunting for? And I was like, okay, I get it. So I got to figure this camera thing out. It just seems cockeyed. But anyway, it just seemed like I'm falling over. I don't know what to do with it. But anyway, I got to got back to the church and I registered for Bethel Leadership Conference and the Influence Leadership Gathering, and got accepted at both. So I'm going there instead of hunting. And I did the same thing last year. The interesting thing was last year I had an altar experience where God said, "Do you want more?" And I'd been going through a month-long process of feeling like God was digging out the well in me. And just, he kept all year long last year revealing hurts that weren't healed, wounds that, I thought were taken care of, issues people I thought I'd forgiven, issues I thought I had. And he, they weren't completely healed. And so he's like, in order to be filled with more of me, you've got to empty more of you. So I went to the altar and I said yes. And this this Middle Eastern young lady came to pray for me. I could barely understand her English, but God was speaking through her about descending into that well, and He wanted to show me two reservoirs, two cisterns that were built into the side of the well, and I had not cleaned them out. And he said, if you want all of the presence that I have for you to carry, you have to be willing to clean these wells out. And it was painful. It was emotional. I went through that at the altar and pretty much was carried back from the altar every session when I was there. And then we stayed for the healing rooms, and I had 5 different teams pray for me, 4 of which I ended up on the floor. And God was just doing a work. And I was like, well, this is great, but I wonder where it leads to. Well, it wasn't long after I got back, and there was the opportunity to preach via Zoom in Pakistan, which led to me going there and preaching in front of 93,000. And it was televised live. 101,000 people accepted Christ, and 106,000 people were healed miraculously. I say all that to say this: if you want the supernatural results in your life that God has destined you for, you have to be willing to dig